Right now, there's a critical deadline approaching that could mean the difference between receiving your full Social Security benefits or leaving money on the table. November 8th isn't just another date on the calendar. It's the final day to ensure you're positioned to receive the maximum $2,400 monthly benefit that you've earned through decades of hard work. Here's what most people don't realize. Social Security isn't automatic when it comes to maximizing your payout. The Social Security Administration requires specific actions and documentation to process benefit adjustments, and missing key deadlines can result in delayed payments or reduced amounts that take months to correct. This November deadline specifically affects benefit recalculations, earnings record updates, and certain filing strategies that directly impact your monthly check amount. Think about what an extra few $100s each month could mean for your retirement. That's money for groceries, medications, or simply the financial breathing room you deserve. The process to secure your full benefit isn't complicated, but it is time-sensitive. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to do before November 8th, what documents you'll need, and the common mistakes that cause people to miss out on thousands of dollars in benefits they're entitled to. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. The Social Security system, as straightforward as it seems, operates on a complex web of deadlines, reporting periods, and administrative windows that most people never hear about until it's too late. I've spent years helping people navigate this system, and I can tell you that the difference between someone who gets their full benefits and someone who doesn't often comes down to knowing when and how to take action. This November 8th deadline is one of those critical moments that separates those who maximize their retirement income from those who settle for less than they deserve. Now, before we dive into the specific steps you need to take, let's talk about why this particular deadline exists and what it really means for your Social Security check. The Social Security Administration operates on fiscal quarters and processing cycles that align with federal budgetary periods. When we talk about a November deadline, we're really talking about the final processing window for benefit adjustments that will take effect in the new calendar year. This isn't some arbitrary date that bureaucrats pulled out of thin air. It's tied directly to how the SSA processes millions of beneficiary records, updates payment schedules, and reconciles earnings histories across their massive database system. What happens if you miss this deadline? Well, it's not like your Social Security disappears, but here's the reality that nobody wants to talk about. Benefit adjustments, corrections to your earnings record, and recalculations that should happen automatically sometimes don't. The system relies heavily on you, the beneficiary, to flag discrepancies, submit documentation, and essentially advocate for yourself. When you miss a processing deadline, your correction or adjustment gets pushed to the next cycle, which could mean waiting another 3, 6, or even 12 months before you see the increased benefit amount you're entitled to. And here's the kicker. Social Security typically doesn't backdate these payments beyond a certain window, which means those months of reduced benefits, you might never recover that money. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in real terms. Imagine you worked a part-time job a few years back, and those earnings never got properly credited to your Social Security record. Maybe it was a small business that reported things differently, or perhaps there was a clerical error somewhere in the system. That missing income could be affecting your benefit calculation right now, and you might not even know it. If you catch it and report it before November 8th, the SSA has time to investigate, correct your record, and adjust your 2024 benefit amount accordingly. If you wait until December or January, you're looking at a delay that pushes your corrected benefit into mid-2025 or later, and those missing months of higher payments are simply gone. But let's get even more specific about what actions you need to take before this deadline. The first thing you absolutely must do is request and review your complete earnings history from the Social Security Administration. I'm not talking about that summary statement you might get in the mail once a year. I mean a comprehensive year-by-year breakdown of every dollar that's been credited to your Social Security account. You can access this through your My Social Security account online, and if you don't have one of those accounts set up yet, creating one needs to be your priority today, not tomorrow. This earnings record is the foundation of your entire benefit calculation, and mistakes happen more often than you'd think. We're talking about a system that processes billions of wage reports annually, and even a small percentage of errors affects hundreds of thousands of people. When you're reviewing that earnings record, you're looking for years where the reported income seems low or is missing entirely. Maybe you remember working a particular job in 1998, but your Social Security record shows zero earnings that year. Or perhaps you had a really good year in 2005, but the amount shown is suspiciously lower than what you actually earned. These discrepancies don't fix themselves, and the longer you wait to address them, the harder it becomes to gather the documentation you'll need to prove your case. Tax returns, W-2 forms, pay stubs, these are the documents that will support your claim, and tracking them down gets exponentially more difficult as years pass. Now, here's something that catches a lot of people off guard. If you're currently receiving benefits and you had any kind of work income in 2023 or early 2024 that hasn't been fully processed, this November deadline is crucial for ensuring that income gets factored into a benefit recalculation. Social Security recalculates benefits automatically each year when they receive new earnings information. But these recalculations have specific processing windows. If your recent work history shows higher earnings than some of your earlier years, that recalculation could bump up your monthly benefit amount. The SSA needs time to process this information, verify it against their records, and issue the adjusted payment schedule, which is exactly why this deadline matters. Let's talk about another critical area that affects thousands of beneficiaries: divorced spouse benefits. If you were married for at least 10 years before divorcing, you might be entitled to benefits based on your ex-spouse's earnings record, especially if their benefit would be higher than your own. But here's where it gets tricky. Claiming these benefits requires specific documentation and timing. You need to provide proof of your marriage, proof of your divorce, and in some cases, proof that you haven't remarried. Gathering these documents takes time, especially if you're dealing with records from decades ago or trying to obtain certified copies from county offices that might be in different states. If you're planning to switch from your own benefit to a divorced spouse benefit or vice versa, that paperwork needs to be in the SSA's hands well before this deadline to ensure the change processes smoothly. I want to address something that causes enormous confusion and frustration: the difference between your full retirement age benefit and what you're actually receiving if you claimed early. Many people claimed Social Security at 62 because they needed the income, not realizing that doing so permanently reduced their monthly benefit amount. While you can't undo an early claiming decision, you can make absolutely certain that the benefit you are receiving is calculated correctly based on when you claimed. There are countless cases where people claimed at 63, for example, but the SSA's system processed it as if they claimed at 62, resulting in a larger reduction than they should have received. These calculation errors can cost you hundreds of dollars every single month, and catching them requires comparing your actual benefit amount against what the official formula says you should be receiving based on your earnings history and your age when you filed. Medicare Part B premiums are another piece of this puzzle that directly affects your Social Security check. Most people have their Medicare premiums automatically deducted from their Social Security payment, but premium calculations and income-related adjustments can sometimes be wrong. If you're paying an income-related monthly adjustment amount, or IRMAA, based on your modified adjusted gross income from 2 years ago, but your income has since dropped due to retirement or other life changes, you can appeal that IRMAA determination. However, these appeals must be filed promptly, and if you want the adjustment to take effect for the upcoming benefit year, you need to have that appeal submitted and processed before the administrative deadlines that fall right around this November timeframe. Let me tell you about a situation that affects more people than you might imagine: beneficiaries who had their benefits suspended because they returned to work and earned above the earnings limit, but then stopped working or reduced their hours. When you go back under that earnings limit, your benefits should resume, but the system doesn't always automatically catch these changes in real time. You might need to notify Social Security that your work situation has changed and request that your benefits be reinstated. If you're in this situation and you want your full benefits restored for the beginning of the next calendar year, this November deadline is when you need to make sure all that paperwork is complete and processed. There's also the issue of representative payees and how they factor into benefit accuracy. If someone is managing Social Security benefits on your behalf, or if you're serving as a representative payee for a family member, the annual reporting requirements and account reviews have specific deadlines. Failing to submit required reports or documentation can result in benefit suspensions or delays, and getting everything back on track requires submitting the missing information and waiting for the SSA to process it through their system. November represents a key window for ensuring all representative payee accounts are in good standing before the year-end processing rush begins. Now, let's talk about what actually happens when you take action before this deadline versus after it. When you submit documentation, file an appeal, or request a benefit recalculation before November 8th, your case enters the processing queue with sufficient time for the SSA to review it, request any additional information they might need, and implement changes before the new year begins. Social Security employees can actually work with you, communicate back and forth, and resolve issues while there's still administrative breathing room. After the deadline passes and we get into the November and December rush, you're competing with millions of other beneficiaries who are also trying to resolve issues, and the system becomes overwhelmed. Wait times increase, processing slows down, and your chances of having everything resolved quickly diminish significantly. Here's a reality check about Social Security Administration staffing and resources. The agency has been operating with reduced personnel and increased workload for years. Field offices are handling more cases with fewer employees, phone lines are perpetually busy, and online systems, while improved, still have limitations. When you need to accomplish something that requires SSA action, timing is everything. Reaching out in early November gives you a fighting chance of getting through to someone who can help you. Waiting until late November or December means you're calling during one of the busiest periods of the year, when everyone else is trying to resolve their issues before the year ends. The difference in service quality and response time between early November and late December is like night and day. Let me address one more crucial point that ties all of this together. Social Security benefits are based on your highest 35 years of earnings, indexed for inflation. If you don't have 35 years of earnings, the missing years are counted as zeros, which dramatically lowers your benefit amount. Some people don't realize they're a few years short of that 35-year threshold, and even a small amount of work income in recent years could replace those 0 years in the calculation, boosting their benefit. If you've worked at all in the past couple of years, even part-time or seasonal work, making sure those earnings are properly credited before benefit recalculations happen is essential. This is particularly important for women who may have taken time out of the workforce for caregiving, or people who had gaps in employment due to health issues or economic circumstances. The bottom line is this: November 8th represents your window of opportunity to ensure everything is in order, every dollar you earned is credited properly, every document the SSA needs is in their hands, and every calculation affecting your benefit is correct. Missing this deadline doesn't mean disaster, but it does mean delay, frustration, and potentially months of receiving less than you should. The $2,400 maximum benefit we're talking about isn't available to everyone. It's specifically for people who had maximum earnings throughout their career. But whatever your maximum benefit should be based on your earnings history, you deserve to receive it, and that requires taking action now.